What is going on, everybody? Welcome back. And in today's video, we are going to be giving my predictions for the Big Ten for the 2025 college football season. Now, in my opinion, I think the Big Ten is a little bit better than the SEC going into this year. And I'm excited to kind of break it down. There are a lot of really, really good teams in this conference. I think more than half this conference will be bowl eligible. I'm excited to get into it. But before we do, consider leaving a like on this video. Helps me out, helps the algorithm get this video out to more college football fans just like yourself. Comment down below, who do you guys think is going to win the Big Ten? Who am I too high on? Who am I too low on? Let me know down in the comment section. And let's go ahead and get right into it. Starting off with who I believe, and I think most people would agree, is the worst team in the Big Ten. That is going to be the Purdue Boilermakers. Purdue is in a really tough spot. They lost, it seemed like, every single player on their roster, from Max Clare, Marcus Bowe. They lost Dylan Thieneman. They lost Will Helt. They lost Cole Brevard. I mean, seems like their best players all ended up hitting the portal. They fired their head coach, and they bring in Barry Odom, who I really, really like. I think Barry Odom did a really good job at UNLV, kind of turning that program around. I think he's a really good overall head coach. He's got a good culture in place, but he's got his work cut out for him this year to turn Purdue back to relevant in the Big Ten. They are plus 200,000 to win the national title. There are a group of 5 teams with better odds to win the Natty than Purdue. They don't have very many key players. It's Devin Mockabee. It's Tony Grimes. I put Nitro Tuggle in there simply because of his name. I think that's the greatest name I think I've ever heard. They have a pretty daunting schedule as well. I could see them winning up to 4 to 5 games if things really hit with Barry Odom. I got Ball State as a win, Southern Illinois as a win. At Northwestern, I don't think it's the most difficult game. I'm a little bit higher on Northwestern than I am on Purdue. Rutgers, I think they could potentially win. But, I mean, look at the schedule. There just aren't a lot of wins on the schedule for Purdue this year. And I think they're in a really tough spot. I think they don't have a lot of key players that are super exciting. And Barry Odom is really starting from scratch with this roster. So for that reason, I have Purdue finishing as the worst team in the Big Ten. But coming up next, or coming in at my number 17 spot in the Big Ten, that is where I'm going to have the Maryland Terrapins. I know, another one that I usually am really high on Maryland, I feel like. I love the players that they typically have on their roster. But this year, I don't really love it. They lost quite a bit. They lost a lot on the interior with Tommy Akinbasote. They lost Jordan Phillips. They lost the secondary members, I believe. I'm blanking on some of the names. You lost your quarterback to the portal. I mean, this team did lose quite a bit of talent in the transfer portal and through the NFL draft. So they don't really have a lot. I mean, you lost both wide receivers. And they don't have an easy schedule. FAU, I don't think, is a gimme win. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that. Florida Atlantic, I think, is going to be one of the best teams in the group of 5 this year. Northern Illinois, Towson, I think you can win both those games. But again, Northern Illinois pulled out a win against Notre Dame. So I don't think that is a lock. Mike Loxley's done a pretty good job with Maryland, but they did kind of struggle in the second half of last season. They are starting a true freshman quarterback in Malik Washington, who the excitement is certainly there. You bring in Jaleel Farouk, you bring in Dorian Fleming. I think they might be okay offensively. Defensively, we're going to have to see. I don't love the schedule. I mean, your conference schedule is pretty brutal. At Wisconsin, Washington, Nebraska, UCLA on the road. I mean, all of your quote-unquote easy opponents, Rutgers, Michigan State, Wisconsin, UCLA, all of those games are on the road. Your home draws were Washington, Nebraska, Indiana, and Michigan. It's just not a very favorable schedule for Maryland. I think they're going to be in a tough spot this year. Plus 50,000 to win the Big Ten. Their over-under is 4.5. If I were going to bet, I would take the under. I've got them at 3 wins. I think they could finish with 2. I have them winning FAU tentatively. But I don't think that is a easy win in the slightest. So I've got Maryland finishing at 3-9 We'll see if they're able to be a little bit better than that, but that's ultimately kind of where I see their season going. Next up, a team that I want to like more than I do. It's just hard, and that is the Northwestern Wildcats. Rich Rodriguez is not their head coach. I do apologize for that one. But this is a team that I thought had a really solid offseason. Yes, you lost Josh Thompson, but they didn't lose any key players to the NFL. You brought back Caleb Tiernan. You brought back Anto Saka, one of the better pass rushers in the Big Ten. But I also think going out and getting Preston Stone was huge for this team. Absolutely massive get for Northwestern, who, look, they have struggled at the quarterback position. I know Preston Stone is not like this elite quarterback, or at least isn't perceived that way, but Northwestern is the team that improved the most at the quarterback position this offseason, and I don't think it's close. Preston Stone, when he started for SMU 2 years ago, was one of the best quarterbacks in America. They bring that guy in. I'm excited to see what he can do. Unfortunately, again, very brutal schedule for Northwestern. It starts off at Tulane, which I'm sorry, I don't normally pick. I usually just favor the better, I guess, programs, if you will, in terms of conference. Tulane is a better team than Northwestern. I don't think they win that game. Western Illinois is probably going to be a loss for you, or a win, excuse me. You probably beat Western Illinois. Let me preface that. Oregon, UCLA, Louisiana Monroe. You get Purdue. There's a nice win. Louisiana Monroe, I think you can win. I think you could beat UCLA. You could beat a Minnesota or something down the line, but there's just a lot of things that have to go right for this team. And as much as I like Preston Stone, I like the offensive line, and I think they're going to be able to get after the quarterback, just don't love the schedule that Northwestern has, and the draw, I think, is tough for them. So, unfortunately, I do have them with a 3-9 record. Hopefully, they can be a little bit better than that, because I'd love to see Preston Stone return to relevancy. But unfortunately, I've got them at number 16 in the conference. This is probably my hottest take of the video, and I don't think it should be a hot take. I've got Wisconsin next. Look, Wisconsin was not good last year. Let's just get that out of the way. They didn't make a bowl game for the first time, and I want to say like 20 years. And Vegas doesn't think they're going to make a bowl game this year either. They're 5.5 win total. I don't know where you're seeing 5 wins. Middle Tennessee State, Miami, Ohio, there's 2. I think you could beat Maryland. Who are the other 2 wins on this schedule for them? They're not beating Alabama. They're not going into the big house and beating Michigan. Iowa at home is okay. Maybe you could win that game. You're not beating Ohio State. You're not beating Oregon. You're not beating Indiana. You're not beating Illinois. I'm much higher on Minnesota than the consensus. Like, genuinely, where are the wins coming for Wisconsin this year? This is a brutal schedule for them, and they still have a lot of question marks. Offensively, they have question marks at the quarterback. Now, Billy Edwards is the presumptive starter right now. He's transferring from Maryland. He's fine. I don't think he's anything special. You got Vinny Anthony as your wide receiver. They don't have a lot of great weaponry. The offensive line should be okay with Jake Renfro and Riley Mahlman, and I like some of the secondary pieces there. But overall, I think that this is going to be a tough schedule. I think Luke Fickell will get fired after this year, because I don't think Wisconsin is going to make a bowl game this year. And I do think that this could be a bit of a regression for Wisconsin, a team that has been relevant for a very long time in college football. It just doesn't seem like this is a program going in the right direction. And I've got Wisconsin finishing with a 3-9 record. Michigan State is who I have next, and man, I like this Michigan State team. Again, so many tough schedules in this conference, and that's why I ultimately say I think this conference is a little bit better than the SEC, just because every team in this conference, I think, can be pretty competitive. I've got Michigan State finishing with a 4-8 record. I know it's a little worse than they did last year, but man, this is a tough schedule again, and I just have a lot of questions about the quarterback. Aiden Childs, if we are talking about NFL draft quarterbacks, Aiden Childs is high on a lot of people's list because the traits are there. He's excellent as a rushing threat. He has a big arm. They lost They bring back Nick Marsh, who I think is going to be a bigger part of this offense. Jack Velling's back. There's some upside here, certainly, with Michigan State offensively to be really good. Defensively, I'm not all the way there. Now, on the bright side, some of your tougher opponents, Michigan, Penn State, even Boston College, you drew them at home. So maybe you can get lucky in one of those games and pull off a big upset. You get Youngstown State, Western Michigan. I think they beat Boston College personally. But again, at USC, at Nebraska, I think that's tough. At Indiana's tough. At Minnesota, at Iowa. You get Maryland late in the season. But unless Aiden Childs takes a massive leap this year and is one of the best quarterbacks in the entire country, I struggle to find where Michigan State is going to get a lot of wins. Very similar to what we talked about with Wisconsin. So, unfortunately, I've got them finishing 4-8. I want to like them a little bit better than I do, but I just don't really see a path for it this season. Next up, we've got the UCLA Bruins. I know this is very high. Ignore the returning production and all that. That is not accurate whatsoever. It is strictly because of the quarterback that I have them ranked high, and at least they have I think they've got some easier opponents. New Mexico, I don't think they win either of their first two out-of-conference games. I think they beat UNLV, but I don't think they beat Utah. But UNLV, New Mexico, Northwestern, Michigan State, I think there's 4 wins. I think you could beat Maryland. The reason I have them at 5 wins and a little bit higher than some of the other teams, it's strictly because of the quarterback. I think Nico Iamaleava is a better quarterback than Aiden Childs is right now. He's still got the traits. They bring in some unique weapons, Javion Thomas, Cole Martin on the defensive side. There's a coaching staff that still has a lot to prove. But I think that Nico is going to be able to carry them to a couple of wins. If his accuracy can be better, I think he's in a better system for him in terms of his NFL development. I'm excited to see what he can do. I've got him I got them finishing 5-7. And like I said, it is strictly because of the quarterback. I don't really know what the weaponry looks like. The offensive line should be okay for them. I thought they had some okay play last year. So let's see what they can do. I've got UCLA finishing with a 5-7 record. And I like what their upside could be, especially if Nico can hit his upside. I think they're going to be a tough team to play week in and week out. Rutgers is a team that I really like, but again, I think it's hard to find a lot of wins on their schedule. I think your first 3 games, win, and then after that, like at Purdue and versus Maryland are the only 2 games. Maybe you could beat Iowa. I think there is a chance that this team, I think the ceiling is 6 games for this team. The floor, I think, is 5. I think Vegas has the win total right on the money. Ethan Kaliakmanis was really good for this team last year. Like, the advanced numbers really liked Kaliakmanis, and he's got great weaponry. Ian Strong, they bring in DT Sheffield from North Texas, who was really good. But CJ Campbell is a guy that I think is going to fill the role that Kyle Monangai left really easily. I'm excited to see what he can do for this team. Excellent size and speed. You bring in Eric O'Neill, you bring in Cam Miller. All of a sudden, this Rutgers team looks like they could be pretty good, and I like this team. Like, I think they're well coached. I think Greg Schiano's done a really good job with this program. But, I mean, at Minnesota, at Washington versus Oregon, after that first 4 games, that is a tough stretch. Then you've got Ohio State and Penn State as your last 2 games of the year. Illinois is in there as well. I mean, there's some tough matchups. So I've got them finishing with a 5-7 record. Their 5.5 win total, I think, is right on the money, like I said. Plus 80,000 to win the title, plus 25,000 to win the conference. Yeah, just don't really love the schedule for them. And that's really what it comes down to. We'll see if they could be better than that. They lost some players on the offensive line, and there are some guys that you might have some question marks with, but I've got them finishing with a 5-7 record. But now every team that we talked about from here on out is going to be bowl eligible in my eyes. This is a team that I think people are going to be really shocked by, but I've got Iowa coming in next. I don't like this Iowa team all that much. I don't think they are the greatest team in the world. Now, for the first time, it seems like ever, they are going to have a real quarterback. They bring in Mark Gronowski from South Dakota State. But I do want to say let's pump the brakes on Mark Gronowski because he didn't have a great season last year. And on top of that, he's coming from the FCS ranks. He's got big shoes to fill here at Iowa. And there are question marks. Iowa's defense also last year, they took a step back in terms of efficiency. They allowed more points than is typical for them. And I am a little bit worried about it. I still think that this team is going to finish right at the 6-win mark. I think their pass rush is going to be really good with Max Llewellyn and Aaron Graves. You get Albany and UMass, which I think are two favorable matchups. I think you can go to Wisconsin and win that game. There's your third win. Michigan State, I think you can win that game. Even, I think Iowa State, I think you could beat Iowa State. I think you could beat Rutgers. There's some winnable games in there for them. There's no doubt about it, but I don't agree with the win total. I think 7.5 is really high for this team. Plus 3,500 for the conference, I think is ridiculous. I think they have like the 5th or 6th best odds to win the Big Ten. And clearly, I do not value them as high as Vegas does. I just think 7.5 games is a very high line. I've got them finishing with a 6-6 record, a game and a half under what I think their win total is. I would have had that win total at 6.5 personally, but yeah, not very high on Iowa. I think a lot of people are just penciling them in because of they've been good recently and they finally have a quarterback, but we just don't even know what Mark Gronowski is going to look like for this team because he didn't play all that great last year. So we'll see. I've got Iowa finishing with a 6-6 record. Coming up next, though, I've got Washington. I love this Washington team. I think they are in a really good spot right now. Their offense, I think, has the upside to be maybe the best in the conference. I think it has that type of upside, especially if DeMond Williams hits. He is one of my biggest breakout candidates for the college football season because, one, I think the arm talent is there, but two, this is just a guy with really good wheels. He can run. He's one of the most dynamic athletes in the open field. You got Jonah Coleman, who I think is one of the best running backs in the country, and Denzel Boston, who I think is one of the best receivers in the country. So you've got that 3-man offensive group that I think could be really good. You've got Drew Azzopardi on the O-line. And then the secondary, you're reuniting Takario Davis and Ephesians Prysock in Jed Fish's system, where Ephesians Prysock played his best season with Takario Davis opposite of him, and vice versa. So I love what they did this offseason. And again, the schedule looks pretty favorable. Colorado State, UC Davis at Washington State. Now, I believe they lost the Apple Cup last year. I'm not predicting that to happen again. I think you can start 3-0. Versus Ohio State, I think that's a tough one. Versus Rutgers, I think they can win that. That's 4 wins. I see back-to-back losses there. So you're around 4-3. But then I see 3 more wins in there. Wisconsin on the road, UCLA on the road, and Purdue. And then you get Oregon to finish out the season. I think there is a real world where maybe Michigan is not that great. Maybe Illinois is not. This team, I think, has the ceiling to win like 9 games. I really am high on Washington this year. I had them at 7 wins. I think they're going to finish around that 7-5 to 8-4 range. Again, I think Vegas nailed it on the money with the over-under. But yeah, I'm excited to see what Jed Fish can do. I like Washington, and I think a lot of people wrote them off last year. They weren't in the national title game last year, but this was a good team last year. They were competitive, and I think they're going to be competitive yet again. I've got them finishing 7-5. Next up, I've got USC. Yeah, I know it's hard to really gauge what USC is going to look like, but I've seen some people have them finishing very high in the conference. I don't know if they're going to finish super highly, personally, but I do think that they are going to be better than they were last year. And I think that this team is going to have a better defensive identity. DJ Harvey coming over from San Jose State was a massive get for this team. You bring back Kamari Ramsey. Anthony Lucas, I think, is a really good player as well with great traits and upside. And the schedule doesn't look all that difficult for you. Your first 3 games, Missouri State, Georgia Southern, Purdue. I think that's 3 wins. And make it 4 because I think you beat Michigan State. You're going to have to beat a team that is a tough matchup. Michigan, Notre Dame, Nebraska. I think they can beat Michigan at home. I think that is a game that they very well could have won last year. I don't think they'll beat Illinois. I don't think they'll beat Notre Dame, Nebraska. But I love 3 of those games late in there as well. I think You get Northwestern, Iowa, UCLA, all home games, by the way. And who knows, maybe Nebraska's not that great. Maybe this team could win 9 games. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. And maybe they could win 10 if Illinois is not. I mean, I'm talking myself into it a little bit too much, but I think their offense is going to be, we know their offense is going to be really good. They've got a great 1-2 punch at the receiver position with Mekhi Lemon and Jacoby Lane. Another year of Jada Mayava, who showed some flashes last year for this USC offense. He is a young quarterback with a lot of upside. Lincoln Riley is still one of the best offensive masterminds in the sport. Can he get the defensive side together? I think there's going to be positive strides in that direction this year. I don't think USC's defense is going to be nearly as bad as it was last year. So I have USC finishing 8-4. I think they're going to be competitive yet again. I'm excited to see what they look like. I think this is going to be the first real great year for Lincoln Riley at USC, where he's had these great quarterbacks that I think there's going to be a great chance to develop a guy. And I'm excited to see what he can do with Mayava. And I've got them 8-4. Michigan, I got at 9-3. I think a lot of people are overrating Michigan. I'll just say it. This team has a fine schedule. It's not all that difficult, and I think you can pencil them in for 1 win guaranteed against Ohio State. The defense is going to be really good. There are still offensive question marks, though, and it starts at the quarterback position. You bring in Bryce Underwood. I know he's the number 1 quarterback recruit in the country. I get it. I'm just going to compare it to DJ Lagway last year because, look, Lagway came in late in the season and was pretty good for Florida, but he still had major growing pains. Accuracy question marks. He held onto the ball for too long. If Bryce Underwood is like that, yes, it's going to be very similar to what it was last year. I think he's a little bit better than Lagway was, but nonetheless, the running game, I think, is going to be better with Justice Haynes. And the defense, I think, is going to be great. You get Rod Moore back, and you return a lot of key players, whether that be Rayshon Benny or Derek Moore, or Jyshawn Barham. There's some good defensive players at Michigan. And I think the schedule is a good one. I think it's a favorable one for Michigan. I said they're going to beat Ohio State. It's until Ryan Day beats Ohio State, I think Michigan is penciled in for that win every year. I'm sorry, Buckeye fans. So that's a win for me. And I know what you're thinking. How do you see 3 losses on the schedule if you have them beating Ohio State? Well, I think Oklahoma is going to be a better team this year. I think they lose to Oklahoma. I think Nebraska is a loss. And I think USC is a loss. Maybe they beat Nebraska. 10-2 is their ceiling, I think. We'll see. I love the defense. I just think too many people are all in on Bryce Underwood. The kid hasn't played a college snap yet. It hasn't come. It's very, very rare that a true freshman quarterback is able to light the college world on fire. I'm not expecting it for Bryce Underwood this year. Now, maybe I'm wrong, but I do think Michigan is going to be, I don't think they're a playoff team. I'll just say that. So, got them at 9-3. I think they'll be a borderline top 25 team by the end of the year. This is my biggest shocker, I think, to a lot of people. You're probably watching and you're like, why hasn't he mentioned Minnesota yet? I love this Minnesota team. This Minnesota team, if you go back and you watch them last year, they were in a lot of close games. They were competitive. And I think this could be this year's Indiana. And the reason I say that is a team that doesn't have very high expectations. A team, they're over under 7.5 games. I'm taking the over. They were one of my most underrated teams. But when you look at the schedule, there is a realistic path for this team to win 9 to 10 games. I don't think it's crazy to say that. They're going to be able to move the ball on the ground. Darius Taylor is a phenomenal running back. Maybe not the greatest athlete in the world, but a guy that just, I think he elevates the floor of your run game significantly. You bring in Logan Loya from UCLA, a really fun receiver prospect. And then in defense, Anthony Smith, a versatile lineman. Coy Parrish, who was one of the best true freshmen in the country last year. He's looking to take another step up, and he's going to contribute offensively for them as well. The X factor for this team is quarterback Drake Lindsey, a redshirt freshman, but I think the sky is the limit, one of the highest recruits in Minnesota football history. And I love the schedule. Buffalo, Northwestern State, Cal, and Rutgers are your first 4 games. I think those are 4 wins for you. You go to Ohio State, come back, you get Purdue, you get Nebraska, which we'll talk about here in a minute. I don't think they beat Nebraska. Iowa, that's a tough game on the road. You get Oregon on the road. There's a floor of 8 wins for this team, but I think the ceiling is 10. I really do. I love this team. I like what PJ Fleck has done. This team is competitive year in and year out. They get good secondary players. Their defense is tough. And I think they embody what it means to be a great Big Ten team. I really, really like what this program has been able to do in recent years. And I've got them finishing with a 9-3 record. But again, another one that I'm very high on this year. I think Nebraska is going to be a top 25 team in college football this year. I think this is the year where Matt Rule really takes the jump. There were flashes of it last year. You had a true freshman quarterback in Dylan Raiola, which, again, going back to Michigan, that should kind of go to prove the point. Like, even the best true freshman players, they don't come in and immediately impact things the way you would expect. Dylan Raiola with another year and with better offensive linemen and better weapons, this Nebraska team is going to hit that win total. I think 7.5 is an easy bet. Give me the over. I think so many favorable games for them. And again, I think they get a favorable home schedule. You get Michigan at home. That is a big draw for you. You get USC at home. I think another one that is a big draw. Yeah, you got to go to Ohio State or to Penn State, to Minnesota. I do think there's a world where this team could win like 11 games. Like, I don't think that that's out of the possibility. If Michigan's not as great as we think, the at Penn State game November 22nd could be the season. I think this team could start off 10-0. Now, I am predicting them to lose a couple of these games. USC, I think they lose. Michigan, they lose. Penn State, they lose. But there's some real upside with this team that I think hasn't been there for Nebraska in a long time. I think the schedule's incredibly favorable. They get a lot of the easy opponents. Michigan State, Maryland, Northwestern, UCLA, even Iowa. Like, I don't know. I think a lot of people are sleeping on Nebraska. I think they are going to be, like I said, a top 25 team. I think Dylan Raiola is going to take a jump. You get Dane Key, a true number one weapon. I think we're cooking in Nebraska. And I think next year, if they can kind of have that season this year, that should propel them to what should be a great season in 2026. And I think this would be a huge success for Nebraska. So I've got them at 9-3. Next up, we've got one of my favorite teams, it feels like every year in the Big Ten. That is going to be the Illinois Fighting Illini. They bring back a lot of really good players from last year's team that won, I think, the Cheez-It Bowl. And I'm excited to see what they can do. Another well-coached program that, again, schedule's favorable for them. At Indiana and Ohio State are the only two losses that I have on the schedule for Illinois this year. Very easy out-of-conference opponents outside of Duke, which I actually think is a tough matchup. But, I mean, from October 25th to November 29th, I mean, they should steamroll through the competition. I think getting USC at home is a favorable draw. At Purdue is an easy road game for you. And you bring back a great quarterback in Luke Altmaier, Hudson Clement coming over from West Virginia, a really fun slot type of receiver with good upside. Gabe Yakis is a really good edge rusher that didn't have the greatest season last year. And every year, Brett Bielema does a great job of producing great secondaries. I don't think this year is any different. Miles Scott and Xavier Scott, two really fun players on that back end. So we know Illinois has great defenses every year. They always do. And Luke Altmaier is one of the better quarterbacks in this conference. So 7.5 is too low. Give me the over on Illinois. I think they are a sleeper to make the college football playoffs. I definitely think that if they were able to beat Indiana, they would probably be in there. Speaking of Indiana, that's who we're going to talk about next. Another team, I think people are, how does Indiana's win total 8.5 after what they did last year look, I'll say it, they're better this year than they were last year. The only reason I have them with one less loss is because they got to go at Oregon and at Penn State. I mean, your out-of-conference opponents are easy. You get UCLA, Michigan State, Maryland, Wisconsin, Purdue. A lot of easy opponents, but I think Indiana's going to be better, and it starts at the quarterback position. I think Fernando Mendoza has a real opportunity to be in the Heisman conversation. The offensive line he was playing behind last year at California was so bad. You get Carter Smith, you get Bray Lynch, you get Pat Coogan protecting for you up front. We're cooking up front. He's going to have a much better offensive line. He's going to have much better weapons. You get Elijah Surratt and this group. Like that is probably the second or third. I'll say it, I think he's probably the second best receiver in the Big Ten outside of Jeremiah Smith, obviously. I love what this offense is going to be able to do. You get Roman Hemby from Maryland, a power rusher that I think is much better than what they had last year. And defensively, you bring back all your key players from Michael Kamara to D'Angelo Pons to Aiden Fisher. Like, the schedule's favorable, but people are sleeping on Indiana. Curt Cignetti wins. Google him. Like, I know that was so cringe last year and it kept going around, but like, it's true. That's what this guy does. He wins at every place he goes. There is no reason to believe that it is going to be worse this year than it was last year, other than the fact that their schedule might be slightly tougher. But even then, I put together my final top 25 because I will do my college football playoff predictions. Indiana's right in that mix yet again. I think they're going to be really, really good. And I've got them finishing with a 10-2 record. Another team that I've got finishing 10-2, though, are the Ohio State Buckeyes. Yeah, I've got them as the third best team in the Big Ten. I have them missing the Big Ten title game for the second straight year because I don't think they're going to beat the team up north on the road. I just find that hard to believe. They don't have an easy schedule. They don't. Penn State, Michigan, Illinois, Texas, Minnesota. I mean, those are 5 really tough games for you. I don't think they're going to beat Texas. I talked about this in my Ohio State deep dive. I think Texas is going to beat them in week 1. The reason I have them at 10-2, there are a lot of questions around the quarterback position at Ohio State. And this schedule is not easy. This is the best case scenario, I think, for them. Yes, beating Michigan would be great, but Lincoln Kienholz is the presumed starter, or Julian Sayin. Look, we don't know what either of those guys are. Neither of them have played college games. And while the offense, they're going into the best situation imaginable with the best wide receiver in America in Jeremiah Smith. Carnell Tate's a great number 2. You get Max Clare, one of the best pass-catching tight ends in America. The defense is phenomenal. There's not a lot of pressure on the quarterback, but in the Big Ten, there kind of is because all the defenses are so good. If you don't have great quarterback play, this could be Kyle McCord all over again, and it does worry me a little bit. I'm in on Ohio State. I still think they're a playoff team. I'll just say that. If you're 2 losses to Michigan and Texas, you'll be in the playoffs. 10-2, I think, is a very favorable ranking for them. Their over-under is 10.5. I'd stay away. I think they're going to lose at least 1 game. If anything, I would bet the under on that. I'm a little bit concerned. We'll see what happens. But I have them finishing as the third best team in the Big Ten because I do think we will see these same 2 teams at the top of the Big Ten this year. Number 2, I've got Oregon. I don't think they're going to win the Big Ten, but I do believe it will be Oregon and Penn State in the Big Ten title game for the second consecutive year. The only loss for Oregon that I have on my schedule is September 27th at Penn State. That's the only loss that I have for them. The schedule's great. I think Dante Moore, look, the reason I'm higher on them, we've seen Dante Moore. And while it wasn't amazing at UCLA, he's had a year to learn. He's in a great offense, and they're going to have weapons. Now, it really does suck that Evan Stewart is out, but they improved the run game by getting Mekhi Hughes. DeCorian Moore, I think, is going to be phenomenal for this team. His tape was ridiculous in high school. This is one of the guys that, as a true freshman, I think can impact right away. And Kenyon Sadiq, the offensive line, I think, is going to be fantastic. He's in a really good situation to succeed, and I think the schedule is very favorable for him. The defense as well. Their defense last year took major strides in the right direction, and I think we're going to see that yet again for this Oregon defense. I think Mateo Uiagalelei has another step to take. Bryce Botcher is a really good linebacker, one of the best in the country. And they made some moves by getting Theron Johnson and Bear Alexander. Like, this team has real upside to be even better. I do think they're going to lose just 1 game on the schedule. I haven't been that Penn State game, but I'm very excited to see what they're going to be able to do. But my number 1 team in the Big Ten right now is Penn State. It says Joey McGuire. James Franklin is the head coach. We know this. I do apologize. Their only loss I have November 1st at Ohio State. So Ohio State, I do think, is going to beat Penn State. They seemingly always do. This is the most loaded roster in the country, I think. From the quarterback to Kaytron Allen and Nick Singleton in your backfield to having a wide receiver trio that I think could be really, really fun this year. You bring in 3 really fun, high upside type of wide receivers. And you bring in the guy from Troy. I'm pulling up the names here. Trevor Pena from Syracuse, Devontae Ross from Troy, and then you also bring in Kyron Hudson from USC, like a really good receiver trio. And we know their defense is going to be phenomenal. Like, I don't think anyone's going to argue if I have Penn State at number 1. Now, this is not what I think who's going to win the national title. I will do a video on that. But I do think this is the year Penn State wins the Big Ten. I think they're going to do it. I think they're going to win the Big Ten title game. And I've got Penn State as the best team in the conference. But I'd love to hear from you guys. Who am I too high on? Who am I too low on? Leave a like on this video. Subscribe if you are new. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.